Hi, Corey. How are you?
I'm good, Danielle. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. I gotta say, Benny Dispatch is one of my favorite songs.
Check one, two, three. I love that.
That was such a good song.
Thank you. Thank you. That's Lin-Manuel Miranda.
And I hadn't seen the Broadway musical. It was the
Okay.
first time that and I'm like, I'm watching you, and I'm like, it was.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, shout out to all the characters who played it before me, but I'm really glad
Oh,
I
you
got
did a
to.
great job. You did a
Thank
great job. As a kid, what did Dracula do to you, or what is the scariest moment in your childhood thinking about or watching vampires do what they do?
you. I think so. My intro to vampires was a little film, a Blaxploitation film in the '70s called Blackula. Um,
Oh,
yes, William Marshall and Pam Grier,
yes.
and it was just a just an incredible. That was my intro. I didn't see, growing up, other versions of that, and that's why I think also those films were important for a little black boy like me growing up in D.C. And so that was my entree into Dracula, and then it
Mhm.
made me curious though because that made me go, oh, well, maybe I should check the novel out. And I remember reading it later on,
Yes.
and then falling in love with specifically this chapter of the book,
No way.
which is the shortest chapter of Dracula. And so that was sort of like my journey, and I've always wanted to. I always thought that this particular chapter should have been a film. And I'm like, why haven't they made this movie yet? And I know they were like trying, but yeah.
Is this law of attraction that we're speaking?
It must be, must be.
I mean, I see the frustration of someone that, the king wanted to see him, and then he sees him and he's like, yeah, no, I don't want you, right?
Right. Clemens is interesting because he's a man of science. He's a man who grew up on boats, but he also went to Cambridge to become
Mm.
a doctor. And these men existed, and doing the research and trying to find these black men who were allowed to go to Cambridge and study and train and went to be doctors all over the world. But Clemens' issue is that when he got there, his reputation preceded him. So his accolades and all of that were great. He looked good on paper, but then they found out that the color of his skin, and so I thought that was an interesting challenge because
Mm.
that's a man who's trying to walk through the world and find his place, and he doesn't understand it. He doesn't get it, and so putting him in this situation with this other thing that he doesn't understand, which is Dracula, right? Like
Right.
this thing that represents fear and evil in the world. And he's also faced a different kind of fear and evil in the world. I just thought it was such an interesting journey to kind of go on. And Andre wanted to lean into that a little bit. And so it was just fascinating. Yeah.
Very interesting juxtaposition. And it actually, I mean, it's a fantasy film. It's all fantasy, but this is a very, you just mentioned that these men existed. This is a very realistic thing. They were allowed to a higher education, but
Yes.
then what do you do with that education? Did you put yourself in those shoes? Did you think about it, like those men 2 centuries ago that
Mhm.
they have the paper, they have the validation. Okay, I'm a
Yes.
doctor, I'm a lawyer, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, yeah, no, you can't practice.
Yeah. Um, it's one of those things that still boggles my mind, because you have people who were able to achieve the highest levels of and even surpass others,
Yeah.
people of color, and then they're told that they can't be what they are, who they want to be, And so I think for Clemens, it was just such a yes, this is a fantastical film. It's a horror genre, but it's also the horror of imagining that you reach a certain station in life and then you can't get beyond that, right? So
Right.
while we don't try and hit it over the head, it just is because of the nature of I'm the actor who they wanted to come and do this and tell this story. And so we had to make it make sense. And I had to make it make sense. Clemens's fear, his ideas of what's possible in the world. He is an outsider. Dracula is the outsider. They're both the other, and they're like circling each other in this way and trying to figure each other out. Dracula in this story isn't like this monster that just doesn't think. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's a
mm.
calculating thing, and Clemens has dealt with calculating beasts all his life. And so I just thought it was such an interesting, like you said, juxtaposition of all of that.
Great talking to you.
You too. You too.
Thank you, Corey. Bye.